All right, so it's been a minute from this Stephen A. Smith LeBron James thing, and everybody pretty much is picking a side. And the thing is that I think a lot of people, I was like, I don't actually think anybody's really kind of wrong in all this. I think everybody got a valid reason to be honest. I was like, from no matter if you're on LeBron's side, no matter if you're on Stephen A's side, no matter if you're on Stephen A's side because you don't like LeBron, or the people that are on LeBron's side because they don't like Stephen A. Smith. Because I'm like, guess what? That also adds to this whole thing is the fact that if you are in the parties of not liking those other ones, then you're going to side with the person that helps that opposition. Basically in this whole thing. And with that also has came the whole criticizing of the media in itself, because Stephen A is looked at, he just signed a big deal, and he's looked at as basically the guy that holds all of what we sort of talk about in the sports world or whatever, even though I don't think that's necessarily true in that. And I was like, that could maybe be a separate thing. And maybe I was like, but I'll probably address it a little bit here. But from the Stephen A. LeBron side of it, I was like, Stephen A. came out and talked about how like he found it like weak and stuff like that. Like LeBron approached him like that, but at the same time, I was like, could it be bad timing? I was like, where they were still in the middle of a game. Sure, I was like, maybe you could point to that, because I was like, LeBron sort of does do these things where it's like it'll be a whole game going on, but if it's something pertaining to LeBron, guess what? It's going to pertain to LeBron no matter what the situation is. Sometimes I was like going on that I sometimes think that, same thing with like the All-Star, where it's like he didn't suit up, he just wanted to be in regular gear or whatever, or not letting anybody know ahead of time. I was like, hey, that was like, is that his right to do that? Sure, but guess what? At the same time, you are sort of being LeBron in this situation or whatever. I was like, there's a whole game going on. And I was like, during the timeout, you decided to go out and do that. Cool, whatever. All right, fine. You want to do that? Sure. So I was like, maybe that's what Stephen A. Maybe I was like, I can see from that point of view of being like, hey, maybe you should have came at a different time or whatever. But I was like, but that's all just like nitpicky stuff that you kind of want to talk about or whatever. I was like, it really comes to the whole thing about this. It's really just a thing of itself, basically, is Bronny. That's basically all this sort of kind of is, because, LeBron's whole point is basically like, hey, basically, he went full Will Smith, and he didn't go full Will Smith. He went partially Will Smith, but basically, keep my son's name out your mouth. Because Stephen A. decided to be like, as a father, I was like, basically have like a different mindset with this Bronny and all, and like how he G League, he playing, all this other stuff. With that being said, I was like, and when it comes to parenting, I was like, guess what? A lot of people who are fathers are sort of like, hey, if you over here going to try to tell me how to parent my kid, then we got a problem. Which, that might be, I was like, I think there's a big thing that we could talk about society in general, of the fact that while, yes, I understand it's your kid and policing your kid and raising your kid and all that other stuff, yes, I was like, but that does not also mean that everybody else's opinions or something like that matter necessarily on kids is necessarily also a bad thing either. Everybody's like, sometimes with where's the community at, all this other stuff, and I was like, yeah, but I was like, you don't want the village to also raise your kids, so guess what? There ain't gonna be no village. But I was like, besides that bigger topic or something like that, I was like, what? I was like, I do see both sides. I do lean more on Stephen A. Smith's side, and I guess you want to say necessarily the media part of it in the whole totality, just because everybody, from most people's perspective, everybody's like, oh, Ronnie only got this spot because of his dad, and I think that's true. I was like, is nepotism I was like involved? Yeah. But I also think I was like, LeBron does have the right to sort of do that. No different than other people in society or whatever that basically gives their kid a chance, a head start. That is sort of why we all want to be in these positions, so we can sort of give kids or the people that is already in our family the head start that necessarily that we didn't get or whatever like that. So that's why it doesn't bother me, where it's like, I was like, nepotism is only really bad once you are still basically only having like your kids and all that other stuff, and I was like, this, and they just not doing a job good enough to deal with it. But with that is also a bad side of them, because it's like the whole time we're like, your dad only gave you this spot. You only on the team because of your dad. And guess what? How does that feel necessarily? LeBron is on that end as well too. Which is sort of why I feel like with the LeBron thing, I'm like, why does that not also get counted into this whole thing? Is the fact that the downside of like that, or your daddy being in the spot, mom being in the spot, and basically getting you the job, is the fact that everybody looks at you like you ain't do nothing, like you ain't got no merit basically being here. You only here because of this. When it's like that's not all entirely true. I was like, Bronny had been coming in this spot since he basically from in high school, stuff like that. When we were talking about him being on the ranked boards and all that other stuff, that he also has put himself in this whole spot. And we got closer to the draft. It fluctuated between like him being like top pick to low pick to basically second round. Maybe not even going to draft it at all. The whole thing that he had where he was at USC, I think that really did mess up his chance to at least prove that he should be drafted in the first round. Because if he was drafted in the first round and he played that first year at USC, I don't think we're having this conversation. Let's be honest. We're not having this conversation. But I think the fact that it's like he decided to come out anyway or whatever, and his dad was like, I'm not gonna let my kid fall. I'm gonna give him a chance to, I was like, get drafted from the team and all that stuff. I was like, I understand how that looks, but I also get it. The thing that I think everybody had, where people are like, hey, he's the 55th pick. We don't talk about any of these other picks and all this. First of all, it doesn't help Bronny either that that the draft class wasn't strong enough to basically have its own headlines. I was like, we had two French players that most people didn't really know. I was like, then you had a bunch of other people that's like, we won't know until a year later how good they're going to be, but at the time, there's nothing there. So guess what? Bronny is going to be the headline name because of his dad and because of basically like LeBron from high school to now. That's what's going to carry with it. So on one hand, the people that are like, oh, he's the 55th pick, we're not treating him like any other people in these round picks and stuff like that, around these picks and stuff like that. I'm like, you're right, we're not treating him like that. But because he's not, at the same time, like we shouldn't be treating him like we should be grading him and stuff like that on that scale. But I was like, where he can also have the notoriety, if you get what I'm saying. Like he can still have the like where it's like we still know a Bronny and we're still like checking up on him and we're like, oh, okay, he's sort of killing the G League, okay, cool, or whatever. Like it can be both ways. The problem is that one, the media landscape that everything is, where the social media, TV, whatever, is not going to allow that. Two, he is the biggest like name of the NBA and probably one of the more recognizable like celebrity people like you want to say in the world on top of that. But also, let's not act like everything leading up to Bronny getting here wasn't also manufactured by his pops. Of being like, he better than half the league here. I was like, he basically started on this team. You need to play him. Him getting a guaranteed second round, I was like, guaranteed contract. Where it's like, on one hand, I was like, guess what? Bronny doesn't need the money, so you didn't need to do this. What is guaranteed is for 4 years, he's going to get every chance in the world. Now that's where you could sort of say like, damn, like that is different than any other people. Because guess what? Everybody wanted to be like, hey, there's all these other players that have dads and stuff like that, and they get to the league and nobody talk about them. It's like, yeah, but nobody's also I was like, none of their parents talked about them. I was like, at the same time, I was like, hey, they didn't have the fortune or misfortune, however you want to look at it, basically being able to play with their son, being in the league at the same time with their son. So that's also a different case. But I was like, but we don't. And I was like, but that doesn't mean that some are not there. I was like, Shaq's son I was like, when he had a chance on the Lakers, he tried out in they G League and they preseason team and stuff like that over in Vegas and stuff like that. He did get a shot. I was like, but we don't talk about that now, do we? Dwayne Wade's son, who has gone from spot to spot to spot, we don't talk about him either, Zaire Wade. I was like, and I think he might have been on the Utah Jazz's like G League squad for a minute as well too. But Dwayne Wade's also a partial. I was like, he has a little stake into the Utah Jazz, so that would make sense or whatever. But none of them people hyped up their son either. And the thing is, it's like, everybody's like, oh, everybody's tagging LeBron, all this other stuff. And I'm like, we did that for LeVar Ball when he was just trying to get his sons in the league. And everybody killed LeVar. I was like, yeah, he was sort of like a fan favorite, but people were coming at him talking about him as a dad. People were talking about like, this is not the way that you should do your sons. Are you hovering and helicoptering around your son all this much? Let them make their own decision. They a man. They professionals now. Don't let them do that. So while we was over here killing the hell out of LeVar Ball, but we can't do that to LeBron when he's literally has what he can do on the actual team. If he's like, nah, he coming up here and playing, put him in. I was like, yes, he's not directly saying that, but let's not act like his connection with JJ or the understanding of how he placed into the whole Lakers franchise and all that other stuff isn't. So I was like, with all that, I was like, I really feel like people aren't being fair on both sides. Like, yeah, we should probably not be talking about, I was like, Bronny James. We should probably leave him alone or whatever like that. But I was like, guess what? Everybody did. I was like, the same way that LeBron is also, he used his son to basically say, like, look at this moment. I was like, the Griffies was out there the first game and stuff like that. I was like, at the press conference, he getting more shine. And, well, not more shine, but I was like, he's getting a different view of it than Don't Connect and stuff like that. I was like, just like how that is, it's like, guess what? It's going to be used the same way for all these people that got TV shows and stuff like that. We're going to be talking about Bronny as well, too. But I was like, but it is a topic of debate or whatever, just because not only, yes, it is LeBron, and I was like, that is a reason I think that we are talking about LeBron. It goes both ways. I was like, you can't have the good and bad. Everybody's not going to just praise this necessarily. Like, guess what? If LeBron is still playing and Bryce is coming through, Bryce is not going to get the same thing that Bronny is. I was like, first kid, that whole thing always, I was like with that. But also, he's going to have a different I was like, prospect and everything like that. I was like, he's sort of going off and seeming like he's doing his own thing as well. Sort of like how we were talking about like the ball kids, where it's like they should stop doing what their daddy tells them to do. Like how LeVar pulled out LaMelo and had him go over there and play overseas on the sorry team. People criticized the hell out of that. But I was like, how that any different? LeVar would have said, hey, I want you to go to this school for better thing. I was like, we'd have been like, that. I was like, you can't be over here just letting your daddy control what you do. And I was like, Bronny is a professional now. I was like, if people were coming down on him, he was still at US. I was like, USC, and we were coming at him on the negative way, even though it's basketball, he does get critique or whatever like that. But sort of how you see with how everybody's sort of doing with Cooper Flag. If you're not into the draft of like that, you're really only seeing the good stuff about Cooper Flag. You ain't hearing nothing bad or nothing like that. That's really the only way you do non-professional type of people. I was like, but once they start in a professional rank, we get to look at you like a professional rank. And the thing is that Bronny has played NBA games. So guess what? You're going to get also critiqued on the NBA game. Now, I was like, just dogging them and trashing them. Yeah, sometimes it could go too far. But at the same time, it's he's being thrown out there. You want to see what he do. But it's like, hey, I was like, he's on the same level that Don't Connect. Pretty much. When he gets in the game, we're going to see how this sort of goes. He doesn't have the same pressure necessarily at Don't Connect, because I was like, somebody does have to guarantee Don't Connect does it. Guess what? Don't Connect was this close to being traded. I was like, and everybody can make up the reason why or whatever like that, being like, Don't Connect's old now and all this other stuff. But it's like, hey, it didn't stop him from necessarily getting traded. Now did it? No. I was like, there's been countless other people that I'm just like saying like in this spot that we would not bat eye. I would be like, we wouldn't care. Like right now, look, Scottie Pippen Jr. is playing on the Memphis Grizzlies and he's balling out, and he's been playing good this whole year, last year, and he was on the Lakers. He was on the Lakers, and I thought he did a good enough job in order to stay on the Lakers, and he didn't or whatever. But guess what? If Scottie Pippen Jr. would have went to the Bulls, guess what? All that would have been said. It would have been like, oh snap, you playing at the same place your daddy played at. Oh man, I was like, and then guess what? He has been getting stuff because of his dad, his mom, and all that other stuff. He has been getting it. He just doesn't have the same. He's been in the league a while now. He's been around a while now that we don't really give it to him on the media portion of it. He's not a big enough player in that scope of magnitude or whatever. But I was like, but if that was happening while Scottie Pippen was probably coming up in the draft, he probably would be getting a little bit of some of that stuff too. But guess what? Also, that stuff is so off the court, really, that you wouldn't even bring that up compared to the stuff that really gets talked about. Bronny is kind of still staying within playing basketball, where it's like people are like, oh, he's killing the G League, and I was like, outside of like two good like games where he just had monster numbers, his averages look good, but his game played ain't really been there because he was not good. But I was like, is he progressing? Sure. Is he getting all the same opportunity as well as he's brawny on top of that G League? Yeah, I was like, cool. If that's the person they want to develop, they should be able to be like, hey, we're going to make sure that he can maximize this whole thing. That's what you should do if you believe in the talent that you drafted later on. That's cool. That's fine. But we got to also keep it a buck of why he's there. And I was saying, I think people just wanting to brush that off to the side. And it's like, no, that's all sorts of reason. It doesn't have to be a bad reason for also like the dog on him. But I was like, but that also can't be taken away the reason why he's here and the same spot. And as far as like the whole like meeting him talking about it and stuff like that, I was like, I mean, to be honest, after the first couple waves or whatever, we did stop talking about it eventually we got to the basketball. But guess what? When you wanted to put him on the team and say like, no, he's not gonna be doing G League, he should be over here on the bench or whatever. It's like, cool, he could be on the bench or whatever. And I was like, guess what? With his garbage time or something like that, he gonna get thrown in. They try to throw him in early on enough, and guess what? He got his ass ate up by Tyrese Maxey, but he's a rookie against Tyrese Maxey. It is what it is. I was like, I just think that now that I'm not gonna say that it's been overblown, but I think this is just gonna. But this is unfortunately this is just gonna be one of those topics until pretty much Bronny is at that point in the league where it's like, is he going to be a role player on the team or not? Because I was like, he got a 4-year deal. Yeah, I was like, after this it'd be 3 years left. We'll see how long Pop still decides to play. Because I think Bron is going to basically try to play until Bryce gets into the league. I do. That way he'll have the story of, I got both my kids in the league. Which will be a huge accomplishment that that even though some people will hate because they don't like LeBron. And then some people will champion because they're like, look what a dad does. It's also the same reason that everybody, and nobody really gives LeVar Ball any credit. Like, you don't hear, I don't feel like you hear enough that it's like LeVar Ball really got 2 of his 3 of his sons in the league. And to be honest, I think if that thing that didn't happen in China with Jello happened, I think he would have also made an NBA squad. I was like, I think that it's one of them things that I was like, I think that after he was just going to leave after that year and stuff like that, he didn't play the rest of the year. I was like, I think that really hurt his draft stock. And I think it was a lot of people basically sort of punishing LeVar in a way too. Because I was like, I think he was good enough to be on. I was like, to get drafted, or I was like, or to make a team or whatever. Not saying that he had a long career, he's gonna stick and all this other stuff. I was like, by the time he was really getting to try out with the Hornets and stuff like that, I was like, let's also be honest, some of this is basically a game of being liked as well too. And I was like, by then, I was like, I think that everything was just hard where he just couldn't be on the team at that point. And you're not going to be over here wasting a spot, even though I'm like, he's good enough to be your 15th person. But that's besides his point. As far as I was like, and this also has came up with the whole thing about I was like Stephen A and LeBron and stuff like that, of basically how they just keep getting talked about and stuff. Then I'm just kind of like, it's part. I was like, a part of the game. I was like, it's part of the game. I was like, LeBron is on the Lakers. He's LeBron James, whose this whole thing has been built around him for 20 years. He's going to be talked about. His kid is going to be talked about. But it's like, I'm like, but nobody's talking about Bryce. Nobody's about to really talk about Bryce like that. Until we sort of get into it, to where it's kind of like, oh, you think he gonna come out this year? Is he a first round pick? There'll be those talks, but nobody's talked really about. Nobody didn't talk about Bryce either. That year that he was at USC, it was just kind of like, oh, he ain't doing all that well, but okay, whatever. And then he had the cardio thing, and then I was like, then it was just sort of best wishes, and it was like, is he gonna come out? Is he not gonna come out? That's all it was. So I think a lot of this is, I think a lot of people just be ignoring the fact sometimes that just like, as a dad, and I'm just like, okay, and you act like you can't critique someone else's parenting. Y'all do it all the time in a lot of ways. Y'all just sort of pick and choose where y'all want to. And that's also, I was like, look, LeBron hasn't done really anything bad as a parent, or we're not like the stuff that I was like, I will say this from this perspective, that we need to have some things in scope. LeBron, fine dad from what we just sort of see. I was like, there ain't been nothing too crazy or whatever like that. we're sort of critiquing the pressures of basically being a star, but we also do. But I was like, so you were saying that's like as far as a dad, to me, that's irrelevant. What it really is that being a star parent, that's a different thing that most people can't really relate to. Is that okay? Cool, you raising a good kid, but it's like, but are you putting too much spotlight on him? Is he doing? I was like, is that too much for a kid to have, or whatever like that? Those things y'all can't really answer. But anyway, I was like I said, I was like, look, guess what? Now we ain't gonna talk about Bron. I was like, I'm not gonna say we're never gonna talk about Bronny again. We'll probably there'll still be like people that talk about Bronny, but I was like, he's not really. I was like, he's not really talked about as much as y'all think. Like if LeBron didn't do this, Bronny would have still been basically swept under, kind of where everybody sort of thinks he should be. I was like, either people that think he's a scrub, or he's a 55th pick on the G League team. Nobody was really talking about until this came back up, and guess what? Now he's circulating again. Anyway, I was like, just my 2 cents on the whole thing. My 2% of this milk is gone, and I'm out. Peace.